All right. Vince, you want me to take the lead here?
Yeah, go ahead, Fred. Why don't you?
Okay. All right. Well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the quarterly meeting of the Texas chapter of the Energy Services Coalition. I want to welcome everyone to the meeting. We've got quite a packed agenda. My name is Fred Yaber. I'm an engineer here at the State Energy Conservation Office, and I am the public sector co-chair of the Texas chapter. And so I hope you all are doing well, survived the winter storm, and are safe. I guess we should start by introducing our officers and then get a roll call for everybody. So Vince?
Yeah, sounds good, Fred. And for those of you that are new or just joined us for the first time today, you are joining us on election day. So I am our outgoing private sector co-chair along with Fred. Have served in that role for the last 2 years, and today will be my last meeting, be passing the torch here this month. I know.
But you're not going away, right?
I'm not going away. So I'm still in the industry. I still live in Texas. I'm not going anywhere. You'll still see me in the ESC meetings.
Good.
I'll just get over to Jennifer. Yeah, next to my screen.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jennifer Lancaster, and I'm the outgoing secretary.
Hello, Jennifer.
Are we doing popcorn? I'll go next. I'm Cassidy Ellis, and I am the outgoing communications chair and am the admin on this meeting. So if you're having Zoom issues, let me know.
And I'm Devin Castleton. I'm the outgoing outreach chair. And maybe I'll just take the minute to thank all of my ESC teammates. It's been an interesting 2020 for sure, but I've certainly gained a lot. Really appreciate the opportunity to have worked with Jennifer, Vince, Cassidy, Fred, all the others who have been helpful. And I think this will be my last meeting in this position also. But thanks for the opportunity and looking forward for more good things for this organization.
Is Dylan out there?
Yeah, and this is Dylan Gaisford. I'm the outgoing treasurer, so this will be my last meeting as treasurer as well, but I'm going to stay plugged in just like everybody else. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Dylan. Fred, should we go through and at least I think we've done a good job of just looking at attendees. Most people have their names associated with their sign-in. So I don't know if we need to name everyone off, but there are a couple just phone numbers. Should we have the phone numbers at least identify themselves, or do we want everyone to say hi?
Yeah, that'll be good. I mean, yeah, I can see we've got quite a bit of people signed up, 27, but yeah, those people on the phone, if you would introduce yourself, that would be fantastic.
So I see we'll just go. I see a number ending in, it's a 573 number that ends in 976.
Steve Gale.
Hey, Steve.
How are you doing?
Doing well. Good to have you join us.
Thank you.
And then a 646 number that ends in 570.
That's Lisa Thames from Bank of America. How are you, Vince?
Hey, Lisa.
Hello, Lisa.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, everyone.
And there's a 813 number that ends in 713. Maybe not. One more time, 813 ends in 8713. If you're out there and want to say hi, just so we know who's all on the line. Okay then. And then I'm going to assume Kyle K is Kyle Klein. He's joined us a lot over the last 2 years. So I'm just assuming that Kyle K is Kyle Klein.
It is. Hey, good to see you guys.
Hey, Kyle. And I believe everyone else is identifiable. Do we want to go ahead and have committee chairs that just introduce themselves as well? We'll have their reports later in the meeting, but I see a couple of you on video.
Sure. Deb Taylor, I'm the Education Committee Subcommittee Chair.
Sorry about that. This is Betin Santos, and I'm the outgoing chair for the Outreach Committee. Hello to everybody.
I'm Cliff Braddock. I'm membership chair. Hello, from St. John's Island.
Hey, Cliff. Fred, I think that's, do you want to touch on code of conduct today, or would you like me to?
Yes. Let me go over that real quick. Cassidy, can you let me know if our speaker has joined us? We told him at around
I'm not yet seeing.
1:15 or something.
Okay.
Cory
yeah, I'm
Greene.
not yet seeing Cory's name pop up, but but I'll keep an eye out. Yeah. Do you want to share the agenda on your screen, or
I can probably do that pretty easily. I have it pulled up on a second monitor.
And for everyone else on the line, I attached the agenda to the meeting invite just before this meeting. So if you want to follow along at home, you can do that.
All right. So one of the things that we always talk about when we start our meetings, the chapter meetings, is a code of conduct. Our organization is a chapter of the National Energy Services Coalition, and they put together a written, what they call a code of conduct, which is all members are supposed to read it and agree to it to ensure what we call a standard of conduct for our membership in the Energy Services Coalition to follow when interacting with public sector organizations, cities, counties, state agencies, universities, state hospitals, and so on and so forth, and other professional organizations to establish a standard of participation that is expected of all existing and prospective members. And so they've got about 6 items in terms of how we're supposed to act, behave in these in these meetings, and when we're representing our Energy Services Coalition chapter in public presentations or trainings and so forth. Each member will be presented a copy of the Code of Conducts. It says absolutely no solicitation of any professional member is permitted at any ESC functions, nor may business cards, company literature, or promotional items be presented to any persons unless they ask for your information. ESC logos and names may not be used in business cards, company logo, or signage without prior approval of the chapter and the ESC National. Company logos or references shall not be illustrated on any presentation delivered on behalf of the Energy Services Coalition. And the one I like the most is number 6, which is the highest value of all is achieved by your active participation in committees, local chapter, and national activities of the Energy Services Coalition. So that's a code of conduct. You should be able to find that on our website. I was going to show our website, but you should be able to find, if anybody wants the link to our chapter Energy Services Coalition website, let Cassidy or myself or any of the officers know, and we'll put you and give you that link. So anyway, that is the code of conduct. Hope everybody gets a chance to see it and read it and ask questions if there are any questions. So go ahead.
No, thank you. It's always good to remind everyone that we're not here to serve our individual company purposes, but the purposes of elevating the industry as a whole. And the code of conduct does a good job of outlining the rules for us to operate under. Cassidy, I think I see Cory on. Does it make sense to skip the financial report, have Cory's presentation, and then circle back with Dylan?
Yep, Cory did join.
Oh,
Cory,
okay.
Are you ready to roll, or do you need a minute to settle in?
I can go forward whenever y'all are ready for me.
Okay, let me, I asked Cory if he could give me a little quick bio so we can introduce ourselves and then introduce him. Cory, I don't know if you heard the beginning portion of the meeting, but we are a private public sector partnership between the State Energy Conservation Office and a group of experts in energy services performance contracting. They work with the public sector to educate on the benefits of performance contracting and assist in any questions they might have and implement projects for that are guaranteed energy savings for these public organizations. I thank you so much for joining us, and thank the Education Committee for bringing up this subject to invite Cory to come and speak to our members. Cory Greene is the Associate Commissioner and Chief Grant Officer for the Department of Grant Compliance and Administration at the Texas Education Agency. Cory has worked at the TEA for the last 26 years. In his current role as Associate Commissioner for the department, he oversees the federal program compliance, grants administration, federal fiscal compliance and reporting, and federal fiscal monitoring division. His area is responsible for the agency's implementation of several federal ESSA programs, disaster programs, stimulus programs, grant development funding, and over 200 state and federal grant programs to school districts and other public sector organizations, charter schools, education service centers, institutions of higher education, and nonprofit organizations. He oversees the private school equitable services, federal fiscal compliance determination and reporting requirements for the U.S. Department of Education, as well as federal fiscal monitoring activities. Mr. Greene, Cory, is a graduate of the Tarleton State University, where he received his Bachelor of Science and a Master of Science in Teaching. He is married to a retired elementary school teacher and is a father of 2 daughters and 3 sons. Congratulations on that. One daughter is an elementary teacher. The other works at the Texas A&M University. One son is a high school agricultural science teacher, and one is in college, and the youngest is a senior in high school. So good introduction. Cory, I'll let you take it away.
I think I need to rewrite that bio. I always send it and tell people pick whatever you want to out of this. I do not expect you to read the whole thing. And unfortunately, you get to listen to the whole thing most of the time. Afternoon, I'm glad to be here with you. Going to share my screen real quick. I do have a few slides, some of which I'll spend some time on, some of which I'll go through rather quickly, just trying to make sure you get all the information you're hoping to see.
Oh, good. We
All
see
right.
it.
So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the stimulus funding that's been made available under CARES Act and under the Carissa Act, the two pieces that have education funding. There's been multiple stimulus bills that have addressed various pieces, but these two are the ones that primarily have money for education. This is just a legal disclaimer that my legal services department makes me include in slides because I am not an attorney and we have school districts who sometimes want to act like I am. So we're going to start with CARES Act. It's the one most people are most familiar with. CARES Act funding came out last March, just almost a year ago. And it was the third stimulus bill. It has multiple fund sources that can be affecting school districts. Most all school districts apply and are eligible for some of the money. Then there's other smaller fund sources that other that other LEAs maybe have access to. Starting out in the CARES Act money, we had the Governor's Emergency Education Relief Fund. This is a discretionary block grant that went to the governor's office. And it was specific for K-12 or higher education uses. The governor's office had discretion in how they distributed that money between K-12 and higher education. A lot of the requirements were looking at university, colleges, or K-12 systems who had greater needs. And so the GEAR money was used by the governor's office for a variety of projects. And there was a piece of that that did come to K-12 for part of our Texas Home Learning System, which is a big program that we've put out to make remote instruction available to all the districts and charter schools in the state. Most people, when they talk about CARES Act money for education, they're actually talking about this program under Section 18003, which is an elementary and secondary school emergency relief fund called ESSER. This is the big pot of money for K-12 schools. The money came to the state education agency, but 90% of that money was required to be granted out to LEAs by statute, by formula. It's in the federal statute, with some remaining funds used at the state level as discretionary funding. And it was the other piece of money that we primarily used to build out Texas Home Learning. Again, that remote instruction system that we were able to make available to all LEAs across the state. But most of the time when people talk about CARES Act money to school districts, this is the pot of money they're talking about. Then it had a lot of flexibility, and it's the one piece of CARES Act that I'm going to go into a little more detail in a few minutes. 18004 was higher education emergency relief, and this was the higher ed piece to match ESSER. ESSER was K-12. 18004 is higher ed. It had many different uses, and the money was distributed across different uses. Grants for higher education, for the Higher Education Act, grants for higher ed institutions who had the greatest needs unmet, a variety of reasons, uses of the money. I can't talk a lot of detail about the higher ed money because I work in K-12. So this money was available. In addition to those three big pots of GEAR, ESSER, and the HERE money that went for higher ed and K-12, there was additional smaller pots of money in CARES Act that would impact some school districts and charter schools. One of those was the Child Care Development Block Grant. We had districts who actually opened up as child care centers for the children of essential workers when all the pandemic first hit. If the school did offer this service, they were then eligible for some of the CARES Act funding under this Child Care Development Block Grant. Now, this was a small number of school districts that probably were able to access this funding because of the use of this money being only for child care to the children of essential workers. Another piece in the CARES Act was Coronavirus Relief Fund. This was about a $11 billion piece of funding to the state. It primarily went to the governor's office and direct grants from the federal Department of Treasury for large, heavily populated cities and counties. So there was about 12 counties and 6 cities that got their money under CRF directly from the federal level. All the remaining counties, their money went through the governor's office and was distributed out to through the governor's office. And then there was a state level pot to this CRF money. And the governor and legislative leadership used some of the CRF money for 3 or 4 different purposes related to K-12 education. The first one being they awarded money through TDM for COVID-19 expenses that were allowable costs that were incurred in the first couple of months of the pandemic when schools were trying so hard and fast to convert to remote education. So expenses through May 20th, the districts were eligible for reimbursement through TDM for 75% of their costs from March through May 20th. Then there was another program under CRF where we purchased e-learning devices and home internet solutions. We purchased laptops, tablets, hotspots on behalf of districts, and we paid half the cost through CRF funding, and then the districts paid half the cost. And then there was a reimbursement program where if the city or county who received CRF funding would contribute to the district's cost for their 50% of the e-learning devices they purchased with us, then they could get reimbursed for a little bit higher percentage. So 3 or 4 different programs under the CRF funding that did impact K-12. And most of it, other than the TDM portion, the rest of it was all around technology, getting devices into the hands of students so they could do instruction remotely. There's another pot of money under CARES Act sitting at the Department of Education, and it is still sitting there. It's under School Emergency Response to Violence, or SERV. This program title is actually one of the federal level's first attempts at providing emergency funding related to school violence and school shooting type incidents. Over the years, it has expanded to also cover emergencies under natural disasters. So Hurricane Harvey brought in SERV money, the pandemic has SERV money, but they've never updated the original federal statute that changed the name of the program funding. So it's called SERV, School Emergency Response to Violence, but it also covers disaster emergencies as well. This money is yet to be released by the Department of Ed. We do expect some point, this slide's a little old because they never did release the money in the late fall. We're still waiting to see what they're gonna do with this money. It is typically formula grants that go out to the states, and then the state awards this funding out to school districts who have very specific type needs. The money is primarily used to work around areas of counseling, social and emotional needs of students and teachers because of the pandemic, some of those mental health type needs that may still exist. And this is a pot of money we're still waiting to be released. So a couple of other last pots of money for school districts and charters out of CARES Act. There was FEMA reimbursement, Category B expenses for schools to do cleaning and sanitizing of their facilities. The cleaning had to meet CDC standards to be eligible, and the cleaning had to happen during the federal disaster declaration time period. We originally thought the FEMA reimbursements might be expanded in some additional categories. In the end, they were restricted only to the Category B expenses for school systems. So it was a little more limited than what we had hoped the FEMA reimbursement money would be available for. Last piece of funding under CARES Act, there was additional money in the National School Lunch Program that's administered through the Department of Agriculture. Supplemental money that went out through their normal process. And this allowed school districts to provide additional meals during the closures and to continue providing meal service during times like we're in now, where a lot of the schools are still doing a high percent of remote learning. ESSER, I'm going to hit a couple of things for you. I'm going to go pretty fast through here. ESSER is a $1.2 billion program. 90% of that being 1.157 billion did go directly to school districts and charter schools. That's the 90% that's required by statute to be a subgrant to the LEAs. The key things on this slide is that that money was available for the districts to use from March 13th of 2020, and it's available all the way through September 30th of 2022. So they get a pretty good time period to be able to expend those funds. I will say we're probably about the middle of that time period, and more than half that money is probably already been spent. It did, the districts incurred a lot of costs early on, and they have used a large chunk of that money already, but it is available through September of 22. Basically, that program is for prevention, preparing, and responding to the pandemic. It's very flexible. The first allowable use is any allowable activity under their Elementary Secondary Education Act, IDEA, Adult and Family Literacy, Perkins Career and Technical, or McKinney-Vento Homeless Education. That almost makes almost anything an allowable expense under that grant. And then they had specific activities related to coordinating preparedness and response, meeting unique needs of schools, procedures, cleaning, unique needs of various student groups, training on how to clean, the supplies to clean, technology, mental health services, planning and implementing summer learning and after school programs where we're at now. And then the number 12, which was a very broad and flexible category. So almost anything, not everything, but almost anything in a school district could be allowable use for that grant money. And one thing that helped districts with it being flexible is that there was not a no supplant requirement. So the money is allowable for a variety of activities. The districts don't have to worry about supplanting other funds, so it gave them a lot of flexibility. The one thing you hear a lot about that ESSER money is that there was an offset to the ESSER money in the state funding. Because we waived the statutory requirements for school districts, they were given a hold harmless. School funding is based on in-person attendance, and we had to waive that when everybody had to go remote toward the end of last year. So basically the ESSER money, because it can supplant, by statute it's allowed to supplant, was used as a method of finance to assist maintaining state funding for this year. So without doing the offset of the ESSER funding, this is kind of what we expect. That we could have kept the districts whole in their funding last year through the end of the year in the summer, but then we would have most likely been short on state funding in 2021. So when we put the hold harmless in place, we filled that hold harmless using the ESSER funds as a method of finance for that hold harmless, which then let us expect full funding for districts in 2021. So what that really looked like is we filled that need. This year, 2021, the funding is basically whole. And then there was additional money that was available through the CRF, the Coronavirus Relief Funding, either through TDM reimbursements or the different Operation Connectivity programs, which was the technology programs. December 27th, President signed the Carissa Funding, which was another stimulus bill. And it also has additional money for GEAR, the discretionary block grant out of the governor's office. That money also is available. They go back to this March 13th of 20 date. That's the date of the federal pandemic as a disaster, the disaster declaration. And this money goes a year longer, so it goes through September of 23. And the distribution available uses of the GEAR money is all the same as the CARES Act GEAR funding. It just brings some additional money into that program. It has a new program, which is something new for us in that it has a specific program for assistance to non-public schools. So private nonprofit schools in the state are eligible to apply for $153 million of funding that came out under GEAR under this specific program for non-public schools. By statute, the governor had to designate TEA to administer this program, and the non-public schools will be applying to TEA for the services. The key thing here is they get service, they do not receive the funding. So they will be applying to us, and we'll be working with people to maintain public control of the funding and to provide the service to the private nonprofit schools who are eligible. The Carissa money also put another pot of money into ESSER, so it's considered ESSER 2, follows the same rules and distribution as the CARES Act ESSER 1 funding. It has a different maintenance of effort requirement, but it does have an MOE requirement on the funding, just like the first pot of ESSER money. And then it broadened the allowable uses specifically to address learning loss caused by the pandemic, preparing schools to help them reopen for in-person instruction as much as possible. And then another allowable about testing, repairing, and upgrading air quality within school buildings. So all the other original ESSER allowable uses we talked about a couple of minutes ago are allowable under this funding, and then it broadened additional uses as well. And this is a much higher amount of funding under ESSER 2 than what the state received under ESSER 1. The next section in that bill, again, provides additional money to higher education under the higher education emergency relief funding. Again, several allowable uses, the same as the HERE 1 money. 89% of that goes to higher ed for very specific uses in statute. 7.5 is additional awards made under the Higher Education Act. Small percentage for IHEs with unmet needs. And then there's a statutory formula provision for 3% of the funding that comes in there as well. So the governor's office, ESSER, and HERE for higher ed, all three of those programs received another allocation of funding under this Carissa Act in December of 2020. And it provides one more year on the funding date. So they now have access to funding through September 30th of 2023. The other thing that changed is the Carissa Act extended the end date on that coronavirus relief fund money, gave an additional year. That money was only originally scheduled in CARES Act to be available from March through December, so a 9-month federal funding program, which is very unusual in the world of federal funding. And there was actually a lot of difficulty with states in some areas spending all the money and trying to get everything done in such a short time period. One of the big issues being the need for laptops and tablets, that the need for the entire country to go remote learning far exceeded the availability of technology. So they did, in this new Carissa Act, extend the use of that money for an additional year, but they did not appropriate any additional funding. So there's my phone number, there's email address where you can reach us. Is there any kind of questions about the stimulus money, CARES Act funding that's been made available for education that I might be able to answer for you?
So we did receive one question over chat, but hey, Matt, you just want to come off mute and ask your question?
Yeah. Mr. Greene, thank you for the presentation. Very helpful. We're talking with school districts, and some of them are a little confused, or I don't know if they're confused, but their interpretation is that if they request ESSER 1 funds, it could result in like a reduction in their funds in the future, some sort of like balancing situation on their balance. But I didn't get that impression from the presentation. Just wanted to see if that's accurate or there are misconceptions there.
No, that question probably comes from districts due to that offset where we used ESSER 1 as part of the source of funding to give them their hold harmless for the end of last year. The districts actually need to apply, and they all did apply. They may not be expending it. Some of the districts have not started really spending that money, but we finally did get every district who was eligible to apply for that ESSER grant money. And so there's probably some confusion there, but that offset has already been done, and failure to spend that money actually would just hurt the district. It does not prevent them from getting their normal federal allocations anywhere down the road. And there has been some misunderstanding in some of the districts that they didn't understand how the offset and the method of finance was used. But everybody who was eligible did get their ESSER grant, and that money is available to them to spend in any of these allowable ways. And spending that money does not impact their future money.
Thank you for the clarification.
Sure.
Hey, Cory, on the Gear 2 money for private nonprofit, could you expand upon the eligibility for those funds? And, do charter schools fall under that bucket specifically, or who are the entities within Texas?
Okay. Yeah, charter schools are LEAs. They are public school districts. Just like an ISD, they classify as an LEA, so they would be eligible for the regular federal funding. They would have been eligible for the ESSER money. This new program under Gear 2, the Emergency Assistance to Non-Public Schools, is only for private nonprofit schools in the state. It's a different way of providing service to private nonprofit schools. These are a lot of your religious-based schools. Your Catholic diocese schools are in that category. There's several different types of religious-based schools, and then other just private nonprofit schools. Excuse me. Under most federal programs, and like under ESSER 1, there's a provision where the private nonprofit schools can receive equitable service through the school district where they're located, whoever's boundary they're located in. Under the Carissa Act, this new program under Gear 2 basically is designed to take the school district out of the process. So there's not a middleman in there. The private nonprofit schools will apply directly to us at TEA to get an allocation of service, and then we will have to provide those services to the private nonprofit schools, whether it's cleaning supplies or instructional materials they need or technology. There's a wide variety of the types of service the private nonprofit schools can qualify for. But it is truly private schools who have nonprofit status. And the majority of those are religious affiliated private schools, but there are other private nonprofit schools who will be eligible as well. And this program is for any of those schools who were private nonprofit operating before March 13th of 2020 and are either an accredited private school or follow the state's rules for private schools. So it's a pretty broad base of schools who could potentially, private nonprofit schools who could potentially be eligible for those services.
Thank you very much, sir.
Mm-hmm.
I've got a question.
Go ahead, Lance.
Yeah. The hold harmless was the reason that the federal funding was reduced back to schools to make up for that. With the ESSER 2 funds, is it a use it or lose it? Is it one of those things that there's going to be a hold harmless there that if you don't use the money, well, we're going to go ahead and reduce whatever you would have gotten from your federal funding, from your state funding?
It's a little early to say if that's how it's going to work with ESSER 2. Those decisions have not been made yet, and with the legislature being in town in session, that's all being talked about with the legislature as well to determine, is there going to be an offset like the first time, how much offset, and to see how it would use. So the decision hadn't been made yet on the ESSER 2 money, but the original ESSER money, yes, if they did not apply for the ESSER grant, they would have still seen the offset of that amount out of their state funding. And so that's why my staff did a lot of due diligence and a lot of outreach to make sure that we got every single LEA who was eligible for the ESSER grant to make sure they applied for it, so that they still receive the equal amount of money that they should have been receiving between state and federal.
Okay. I don't want to put you on the spot and say which way do you think you would lean. I can tell you that all of the CFOs and business managers I've been talking to all believe that it's going to be reduced. So that's kind of their feeling based on the past. They would love to be surprised otherwise, but I know you can't answer that one way or the other because you don't know, but I do appreciate you answering.
Yeah, I don't know because the decision hadn't been made, but I will tell you that process was done under the ARA funding in 2010. It was done under ESSER 1. So I think they're better off expecting that will happen again, and, you know, be pleasantly surprised if it doesn't.
Okay, I appreciate you answering.
I have another quick question for you, Mr. Greene. Associated with procurement, these funds are federal funds. Do they require all the federal uniform guidance for districts to actually spend the funds or procure services like from companies like ours to be able to do the work?
Yes, because it is federal money, regardless of the fact that the state used it as an offset for a method of finance on their hold harmless. Because it is federal money, it has to follow all federal rules and regulations. So all the standard federal procurement rules that apply to the district's other federal funds apply to these ESSER grants as well.
Thank you.
Any further questions for Mr. Greene while we have him? I think hearing none, Cory, would just like to say thank you. You're more than welcome to stay for the remainder of our meeting, and or free to go about your day. But thank you very much for taking time to join us today.
All right, I appreciate it. And I've got other meetings scheduled, so I'll be leaving you. But if you have any questions or anything, feel free to contact me.
Before you jump off, actually, one quick question. Can you share your slides with us so I can distribute to the attendees of this meeting, or are these?
No, I can share them. I've only got an email address, I think, from Fred.
That's fine, and he'll get.
I'll send them to him.
Thank you very much.
You bet.
Thank you, Cory.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Fred, good work, engaging with Cory and getting that set up for everyone.
Yeah, and thanks to the Education Committee for coming up with this idea. I mean, this is a very good topic.
And on behalf of the Education Committee, thank you, Matt Lombardo, for the idea. So
thanks, Matt.
You can see by my questions, I had some things I wanted to talk to him about, so I appreciate it.
All right, so Vince, you want to take the next? Oh, Dylan, can we talk about the financial report year to date?
Yeah. So I've got our February numbers. We are now at $12,906.77. That's actually up $770 from last month, which is a pretty significant jump. And that's due to this being kind of the membership renewal time of year. A lot of people joined in the February, March timeframe. So we're seeing that help out with our funds. But however, we are seeing that we have 60 active members, but within the next month, 19 of those memberships are all going to expire due to that same thing. You know, a lot of people that signed up in March. So that's nearly a third of our membership. So we need to be mindful. If you've got if you're looking to renew, let's do that soon. You can reach out to me or anyone on the ESC committee and I can get you a status. I think that Cliff's actually going to talk about it a little bit more. We're trying to work on some ways to notify people a little bit better what their when their renewal dates are up and when their membership's up. So that's kind of where we're at right now in terms of membership and our funds. Is there any questions?
Hey Dylan, I need to find it, but I'm going to put a link in the chat from the ESC website where you can put in your email address and it pulls up your membership status, including your renewal date. So this is great opportunity for everyone on the call to go in there and double check your status.
Awesome. Thanks, Kesty.
This is Fred, and I want to thank Cliff for letting me know that my membership is still not renewed. I went ahead and sent an email to our purchasing department to see, you know, what the status is, but my intent is to to pay that. And and one thing to note is that with the elections coming up, one of the rules that we have is you have to be a paid member in order to cast your votes for these. So please get your membership up to date so you can we can count your ballot.
Good reminder, Fred, and that's probably a good transition into the next line on the agenda, which is elections themselves. Fred, do you want to talk through that process of how the votes will be received and compiled? You know, the national organization helps compile those votes to do exactly what you said, make sure that the people voting are eligible to vote.
Right. Sure. Let me just first say that I am thrilled that we have candidates for the various officer positions in our chapter. We didn't have to go out searching for candidates, and so I'm very grateful that people have stepped up to nominate others and interested in being an officer in this next year. So the way it's going to work is that today we've got a number of candidates that have signed up, and the voting will start today. We will be sending out an email for you to cast your votes. The votes are going to go to the national organization, to Jim Arwool and Dale Haas. They will tally up the votes and let us know the outcome of it. And so we have from March the 3rd, which is today, until Friday, March the 12th, which is the voting period. On March 15th, we will announce the new officers, slate of officers, and on the 24th, we will have the officers will meet to transition the appointees of the officers to the new officers. So that's sort of our schedule for how we're going to do this. And it worked fine last year, and we're going to repeat it again this year. So, so do we want to go ahead and open it up to have the nominees or candidates say a few words?
Yeah, I think we should, Fred. You know, it's different this year, obviously, with elections being held virtually. But what we tried to implement last year is an opportunity for all of the candidates to speak. I know we have some candidates that are running unopposed, but I think we'd still love to give you the platform and the opportunity to address the chapter at large. If you'd like to speak, at least to introduce yourself and start to give people a feel for who you are and where you'd like to take the organization if you were to be elected. So I put together a list, and I believe it's just in alphabetical order by position. But for private sector co-chair, Zach Christensen, you're first.
All right. Thanks, Vince. Thanks, Fred. I know most everybody on this call, but it's my pleasure to be here to introduce myself to those of you who I don't know. I'm Zach Christensen, the area sales manager at Johnson Controls. I direct the business, I direct the sales efforts in Texas and 3 other states for JCI. And I guess I would say, just for some brief comments as to my feelings on the ESC and its mission. This will be 2021 will mark my 10th year in the industry. And so more than some, less than others, but over that 10 years, I've really seen the benefits of what we do to scores of our public institutions here. And so I have a real belief in what we do and the value of it. And I think I think that as we all work together in the ESC to further the mission and evangelize what we do and educate on what we do, that our Texas public institutions will be all the better for it. So I'm excited to work with all of you and very excited to meet those who I don't know. Thank you.
Thanks, Zach. And I guess likely to say congratulations since you're running unopposed. So we will be in good hands, and I look forward to transitioning with you.
Thanks, man.
Larry, I see you turned on your video.
Yes,
good
sir.
to see you, my friend.
Yeah, I'm Larry Daniels. I've been with ESC from years ago when it started. Then it collapsed. Now we're back again. So I've been around for a little bit of while, and I really want to see the chapter continue to grow. We got a good momentum going. My role as the treasurer, I'll be able to, do all the reporting and manage your money better than I manage the money my wife takes from me. So that's it, guys. Looking forward to it.
Thanks, Larry. And Cody, I see you turned on your video. Good to see you.
I am. Can you see? Oh, there I am. I was looking for myself on the long list. Yeah. So I appreciate the nomination, and I'm very interested. I've been with Year Out almost a year now. They hired me to start a Texas region for them, and so I've been in the ESCO world about 10 years. Been a project manager, been the operations manager, now the vice president. So I've been in a lot of different stages of the ESCO world, and it's I've been in construction my whole life. Ever since I graduated college, it's all I've ever done. And I just, as I start this new chapter for Year Out, I made a very critical decision that I want to be involved with a small amount of organizations deeply, that rather than just have my name all over everything. I want to be able to, when the leaders call me and they need somebody to step in and do something, I want the availability on my calendar to be able to say, yes, I can take care of that. I'm very much a doer. I'm very organized. I'm very into the numbers, obviously. That's kind of what I do on a day-to-day basis now. So very eager to jump in and help out and be heavily involved as much as possible to help ESC grow and help people know who we are and what we do for the business that we're in.
Thanks, Cody. And I think whether it's Larry or Cody, we will have left you in good financial situation. We didn't spend necessarily a lot of money other than the Zoom account over the last year. So I think the chapter's in as good of financial shape as any chapter in the entire country.
Great.
Cliff, are you out there?
I am. Can you hear me, Vince?
I can. Hey, Cliff.
Wonderful. Hey, thanks for just a few minutes of kind of stating who I am and my interest in this. I've known Vince for a while. I was with him. I was with Amoresco for a while and got to know Vince a little bit. I was on the federal side, but yet we decided we need to determine if we could collaborate and share successes and stories and just overall collaboration, even though we are in different divisions. And that's how I first learned about this organization. And then I encouraged to actively participate and get involved in some of the industry leading organizations. And this opportunity came up. I've been in the energy efficiency business for 2 decades. And it's time for me to contribute to organizations such as this. So if given the opportunity, I'd be more than happy to fulfill all of the requirements. And as the secretary component, I've spent most of my life being a really glorified secretary. I take just copious notes and the ability to parlay them back into what was said, when it was said, and who committed to what. And but just really good at that, documenting. So I think I could contribute to the organization in that way. And if so fortunate, I'm ready and eager to be a really active participant. And part of it, because just being encouraged to do so, and just from Vince, you know, kind of your leadership and inspiration with that organization was very helpful as well in making the decision to do this.
Well, thanks, Cliff.
Sure.
Rachel, I see you turned on your video. Do you want say hi?
Yes. Hello, everybody. My name's Rachel McCafferty, and I've thrown my name in the hat for consideration for chapter secretary. I work for Metris. We're an energy efficiency finance firm and have been working in energy efficiency for about 5 years. And before Metris, I was working on some interesting energy storage projects. So, you know, very keen to get to know organizations in this space. And I was actually encouraged to join this chapter probably about 5 or 6 months ago by recommendation of Devin, actually. So thanks, Devin. And, you know, so far I've really enjoyed being a part of the org, specifically how it brings all the right stakeholders in Texas together, from the public sector and private industry, to really learn from each other. And, you know, of the various ESC chapters that I've been involved in, Texas is definitely the most impressive and active. So I'm happy to be a part of it. And, you know, another part of my motivation for running for office and being involved in this org is really to get more connected and informed with what's happening in Texas, specifically because I'm actually not based in the state. I'm out in California. So I understand that's not the norm, as most members in this are, you know, located in this state, but I really see this chapter as, you know, one of my most important resources and sort of like a lifeline of sorts. And I'm really motivated to participate as much as I can, and, you know, would be honored to take on the role of secretary. So, you know, even though I am remote, plan to come out to Texas frequently as things open up. And I'm really looking forward to 2021 with all of y'all.
Well, we'll always welcome you in Texas, whether or not you're voted in or not. So yeah, it'd be great to see you. Roderick.
Yes.
How are you, sir?
Doing great. Greetings to everyone. My name is Roderick Roach, and I currently work for Johnson Controls, where I've been there for about 8 years now, where I serve as a senior executive. And I've just developed a passion for ESPC and serving Texas and the communities of Texas and partnering with those communities. And a lot of you that I don't know at this point, but I just look forward to growing and having deeper relationships with everyone and serving the ESC and doing what I can to help this organization grow.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Matt, do you want to wrap it up?
Yeah, man. I love ending the session here. No, welcome, Roderick. Excited to meet you. I'm Matt Lombardo. I've been part of Guaranteed Energy Savings Performance Contracting for 10 years. I've been a part of this organization, this ESC, for the last 2 years. Actually worked in outreach, and some of you have heard me speak to actually presenting on behalf of the ESC to others, such as speaking to the North Central Texas Council of Governments or the SAGE group. Had an opportunity to do both of those. So in terms of the role, I'm lucky I'm unopposed right now, so I'm not going to talk trash about my opposition. But I will say that I'm excited about promoting more. I see this as one of the most valuable parts of the Texas ESC is being able to promote our message, as kind of Zach had pointed out earlier. And so I'm hoping to as well promote our outreach and hope that we get our message out there and make the pie bigger for everybody who's involved here.
Thanks, Matt. And I think to your point, with you running unopposed, I can say this without influencing a vote. You did a great job when you did represent us over the past year. And thanks for being a part and active in the organization, even when you didn't hold an officer position. I think we'll be happy to have you in that role. So thanks, Matt. So that concludes the speaking portion of the elections. As Fred said, you will receive an email, and it will be email ballots that will be compiled by the national organization over the next week and a half for the election of these roles. So,
hey Vince, can we have we been in touch with national about that, just to confirm that that's actually happening today?
Yes, I did, Cassidy. I did that this morning to confirm that. And yes, Dale will tally up and give us the results.
Great, thanks, Fred.
Yeah, thanks, Fred. So next on the agenda, we had our committee reports. For those of you that are new, we've, over the last 2 years, the committees have been an evolving process of how we manage the committees. What do they do? What are the roles? And even how do we assign their chairman? For the last year itself, the elected officers had decided to appoint committee chairs. And so the 3 appointed committee chairs for the past year were Dub, Batin, and Cliff. They really signed up and have done a great job, considering the virtual nature of the way our organization had to shift on the fly. And I just want to say thank you to all 3 of you for your continued involvement in the organization for the past year. I think it'll be up to the incoming officers to, work with existing committee chairs, see what their interest is, if they want to stay in their roles or if there's look for new people to fill those roles. But I just want to say thank you to all 3 of you for the work that you have done, over the past year. It's been great in a trying year. So, Dub, do you want to say anything about education?
Sure. Yeah, the education committee, the objective of this is to really support information sharing and professional development sort of training and education for the members of the Texas ESC chapter. Different from sort of outward facing educational activities for prospective clients and users of ESPC. The idea here is that there are maybe new practices, technologies, things that companies should be aware of in putting together solutions in the field. And this would be a good forum to do that. We started doing monthly webinars last year, probably about April or May, and have had several of those. They're actually, we record them and they're on the ESC YouTube page. So if you miss those, there's an opportunity to view them later. And going forward, we've had some discussions about, if this is the right model. A year into COVID, probably most of you, like me, are sort of zoomed out. And, the last thing you want to, plug into your calendar for an hour is yet another Zoom meeting, particularly if you can watch it later. So this may need some adjustment, and we'd like some idea and input. Been happy to help kind of shepherd this process, getting it going and over the last year, and happy to continue in that role if there's still value in me doing that. So more to come, but I think we've had good success, and this has been a useful tool for members of the Texas ESC chapter.
Thanks, Dub. Batin, do you want to say anything about outreach?
Hey, yes, thanks. Appreciate it, Vince. So Our outreach committee is a little bit different than the education committee. Sometimes it feels like we do the same thing, but outreach, education is a little bit more internal to the members, as Deb was saying. Outreach goes out, right? Out to the public, out to the public sector, potential members, and to our current members as well. It's been an interesting 2 years. The first year we had really great traction. We had a very active and committed outreach committee. I want to thank everybody for that. And we got the word out about ESPCs. And we built a database looking at different client sectors in terms of the energy savings performance contracts. And so we want to build on that. Last year, as you guys all know, it's been a little bit more difficult because of the pandemic. We did do some virtual presentations. You heard a little bit about that already when Matt was talking. And thank you, Matt, once again for being so helpful in that. We had a couple other folks also step up. You know, we had presentations at SAGE, NCT COG, the Texas Energy Summit, and also I think a couple local Association of Energy Engineers. So a big thanks to Fred, who's been we've been basically co-chairs of this little committee. So thank you so much, Fred. Vince Zubacek, you stepped in a couple times for us, and I think it went really great. Matt, of course. Larry Daniels, always a very, very active member of our committee. Jake Weaver, who really helped to put the database together. And of course, in the first year, Cassidy and Devin really kicked off some of the virtual learning that we did before we had even went into the pandemic. So we kind of move into that pretty easily, I think. I've been thinking about, you know, what's it going to be like going forward? And, you know, we've had some virtual things, but we've also had some conferences, which is a big part of what we'd like to be doing in the outreach committee, to get out there and talk to people about the ESC coalition. You know, some have been moved to fall, and then we're still not sure if it's going to happen, but maybe we will start to see with the fact that we have the vaccine going out, and because some of the changes here in policy here in the state. So I think that's going to be an important part. I think Matt is going to do a great job leading with that, especially with all his experience that he has there. So I think you're going to start seeing things open up later in the year. So I think that's very helpful. Last thing I just want to say, I want to echo what Fred said when he was talking about encouraging everyone to be active. You don't have to be an officer or a co-chair or a subcommittee chair to be active. This is a coalition, and it works really well when many people participate. So one thing we always want to do is to get more people to participate in the committee. And I think listening to the folks who are running for office, I see really good stuff looking forward this year. So thanks a lot for the last 2 years, and I wish everybody the best.
Thanks, Batin. Cliff, do you want to say anything about membership?
Hi there, everybody. Yeah, I'll say a couple words just as a snapshot as to where do we stand on membership. I believe that when our chapter started, I don't have the record in front of me, but I heard that we had like 70 folks that in the beginning. And I'm looking at, we have 60 paid, actually 61 that are paid right at the moment. And some of you guys got a nasty gram from me earlier today and yesterday about need to renew. I won't name names, but if those that are appear to be active and would renew, then we're going to be back up to about 65, 66 paid members. The vast majority of us are ESCOs, which is that's great. But I'm thinking that we need to expand our membership to more of the service providers. And also we have four members that are in the finance, represent financing, and a couple of other disciplines. So I think that as we move forward, I would encourage every member that's on here on our call to think about one or two of your subcontractors or vendors or somebody that might be affiliated with the energy savings industry, and invite them to participate. Because as Bethan just said, activities from all of us enhances not only the chapter, but it enhances us as individuals also. And just one more thing, and I'll be quiet. y'all know that our the annual meeting is coming up in Austin later this year. So it would seem to me that this would be the time. This is the year, if there ever was one, for our local Texas chapter to really put our best foot forward and just reach out and let's become extraordinarily active this year, not only for our Texas chapter, but in support of what the national is going to be doing. I think it's a little early now to know what favors we could do to help make that conference this fall really successful. But I would like to see it as a membership drive, if you will, to try to get a lot of excitement within the energy efficiency industry. So anyway, we're a healthy chapter, so it seems. We got plenty of money, and I think that's the update for right now. Thank you.
Thanks, Cliff. So Fred and I and all the officers put an item here on the agenda, and this could be an open discussion, or it could be a situation where people don't have much to say. But we thought this has been one of the hardest things to do, frankly, in the virtual environment. We've tried some different breakout formats. This one we're opening it up to everyone to say, hey, short of being in a room with each other, brainstorming where do we need to go as an industry and organization, let's try to do this virtually. And if there's messages that those of you who aren't running for officer positions want to make sure that the folks who are here about your visions for what our organization is doing or what we need to do in the industry, it's definitely a time in Texas where energy consciousness is on everyone's mind, with the blackouts that we've all experienced in the last 2 or 3 weeks and the weather events. So I think there's a lot of opportunity for the chapter, and just wanted to open it up for open discussion if there's folks that would like to say anything.
Vince, this is Fred, and I just want to follow up on what Cliff was saying. I want to congratulate all the nominees, but this is a very good year for our chapter, in that, as Cliff was saying, we have an annual conference that the national organization puts on, and they've selected the conference to be here in Austin, Texas, at the Driscoll Hotel. I confirmed that this morning with Jim Arwood, and this is a really good opportunity for us to really get motivated and help the national organization in putting this conference, which will be held September 21st in the evening, and then all day 22nd, and half a day on the 23rd. I just want to make a plug that, our office, the State Energy Conservation Office, really supports this organization to help us achieve those goals that we have for energy efficiency. And you can count on us to do what we need to make this organization strong and active and involved.
Vince, I'd like to throw something in here before we wind this meeting down. We did a survey this past year, as the virus came around, to try to get a read on our membership. And that was valuable, at that point in time, kind of relevant to the situation that was going on. Well, the situation that's going on today, and I know that all of us here are going to live with this for the foreseeable future, that here in our great state of independent grid, there's a lot of indecision, and concern about, what about power reliability? And it's quite relevant to the reliability and resiliency of the electric grid, that energy efficiency, be prevalent. Our industry is directly connected, to that entire challenge. And also many of us are involved with various forms of distributed generation, like solar PV, energy storage, thermal storage, and backup generators and demand response and all that, those technologies that are out there. So here's what I was wondering is, I think, given what Fred said just now, he's the state, And I'm going to, just figuratively speaking, he's not far from the where legislation is drafted in the Public Utility Commission and so forth. And I was just wondering if we had a top 3 list of the top 3 benefits that the ESCO industry can bring toward resiliency, that, I think that might be something that would be worthy of public policy. So where I'm going with all this is I would like to perhaps throw this to our new leadership, our executives, after the elections are done. And maybe we will canvass our entire membership and let's come up with that top 3 list as to what does the ESCO and the energy efficiency industry bring as a solution for power, electric grid, and for that matter, gas grid resiliency. So it's just an idea, just food for thought. We don't have to debate it or even agree or disagree. But anyway, it's just a thought, because we want to pitch in on this challenge that we now have in our state.
Cliff, this might be a good place for me to jump in. So I completely agree. I think that energy efficiency and passive survivability and the resilience aspects of efficiency are absolutely having a moment right now. And this organization is extremely well positioned to expand that conversation. The organization that I work for, SPEAR, is also very much in that place. And we are putting together currently some resources kind of annotating the value of efficiency for resilience, for grid, for cost savings, kind of a lot of the items that you're talking about. And working on putting together kind of educational events for the legislative session or the legislature around the value of efficiency. So I was planning on making sure that this organization was aware and tied into those conversations, and also was probably going to maybe I'll just mention it here. I'm sure most of the people on the call today received NAESCO's newsletter today, and they annotated 6 state level advocacy areas that they're working on. I am curious if there's an opportunity for us to work with NAESCO to see if we could bring them into a couple bills that are have been introduced this session specifically around efficiency. So curious of other people's thoughts on that and how we might do that.
I'll pile on for a minute, maybe slightly off topic, but to kind of build on Cliff's statement and also what Cassidy had said. I think all of my fellow officers would probably by now be tired of how much I've maybe been trying to push the envelope a little bit from the internal perspective. I think one of the ways that ESC can be even more valuable to the membership and more effective in the actual practical application of what we're trying to do is, and again, I don't want to make anybody frustrated here, Fred or anybody else, but I'm a real big advocate on kind of expanding the breadth and the scope of what we're actually doing on a day-to-day basis. And that goes above and beyond guaranteed ESPC, right? I mean, I think that there are so many adjacent spaces that we're working in as active members of the industry, where when we're sometimes confined to just one base layer of what we do, we're sometimes not able to really portray the true value of what we're able to do out there for our clients. And I think there's a lot of service that can be rendered out there in terms of what we're trying to accomplish. So I'm always going to try to push the envelope and expand the horizon just a little bit beyond just ESPC, more into understanding the benefits, but also the challenges of living in a deregulated energy market. As a service type offerings, design, build, all of the different things. Renewables is a really big part of what we do. And so I would just kind of add on here to suggest that there is a lot left to talk about still. And I think that this committee can be very instrumental in kind of bridging those gaps of information and education out to the membership and to the populace of organizations that could really use our help. So I'm in full support of expanding the talk tracks. And as a continuing member of this organization, I will always be supportive and do what I can to try to get us a little bit more current with what I feel like the actual application of what we're trying to do is.
Thanks, Devin. And as we've had many conversations, I couldn't agree more with the spirit of it. I may have, to a fault, tried to keep us within the guidelines of that we've kind of been given around guaranteed performance contracting because the nature of our public-private partnership around this organization. So I really, some of it, Fred and Eddie, from your perspective as the public representatives in this organization, to the extent you can continue to drive this organization, and Eddie, with you being on the national board of directors, to expand the operating parameters, I think that would, to Devin's point, be very good for this marketplace. So, if there's leadership there from the public sector side to expand that, I think the market would definitely support it.
Yeah, I would agree, Vincent. I mean, the name of the organization is Energy Services, right? It's not Guaranteed Savings Coalition, right?
Completely agree from the name of it. Yeah, and I think the spirit of it has always been there. There's, obviously tighter writing in our, articles of incorporation. So.
And Vince, I want to just add, I mean, I'm not trying to be a contrarian. Like you said, we've had these conversations many, many times, and I understand and respect the guidelines, which I think is why we've kind of kept the talk tracks that we have, but just something to think about for the new membership coming in, the new leadership coming in, that, nothing stays static forever. Evolution is always a good thing. And I think the more caught up with the actual marketplace we are, I think the better everybody benefits. So I echo what you say.
Yeah, and I think it makes you more inclusive of our audience, right? So we don't want our customers to think it's energy services guaranteed contract or don't do anything energy efficient at all, right? There's tons of options that you can do, and we're here to educate you on all of the options, not just a small portion of them. And then if you provide the education of everything, then they have the education to make an informed decision versus, oh, we only heard 30% of what's out there.
Anyone else want to add anything?
Yeah, I'll add a little bit. I think I agree with Devin and Cody's points. The one thing that I agree very much with you, Vince, is that the national organization is literally, in its mission, is about energy savings performance contracting. So if it's going to be a determination of that point that we need to think of other options to discuss, then for sure, let's get on board. And Eddie is on the line, right? People who are nationally a part of the organization can say that's okay. But since we're an arm of the national organization, I would think that we would need to fall in line with its mission. And that being said, though, I also think that a lot of the stuff that you guys mentioned, building resiliency, renewables, all the stuff can be done in a guaranteed energy savings performance contract. So we could navigate talking about those topics and just use the GESPC as the main delivery discussion if we have to.
Yeah, I agree with that, Matt. Just to reiterate, I think what maybe Vince and even Cody were alluding to is it's not even necessarily separate from ESPC, but it's hand in hand with it. So I think that's why it's relevant. And I think that's why, as the ESC organization, we kind of recognize, understand that. We're not trying to take off the track of ESPC. I think we're just trying to illustrate how inclusive ESPC can be, just from, off of the general lighting and controls pace for capital intensive HVAC stuff. There's a lot more that can be included and operates hand in hand with that. So totally understand what you're saying.
And this is Eddie in Austin. It never hurts to ask. So, if you have some ideas that you think we could broaden, that would broaden the audience in Texas, that might be applicable to other states, and have a proposal for wanting to do something along that line, keeping in mind the ESC mission at the, especially with federal contracts, but if there's a way to broaden that overall mission that may be acceptable to them, you should ask. And I'd be happy to just like, you know, Cassidy sent me the suggestion with the LinkedIn as an alternative to Facebook for web pages and stuff like that. I sent that up to Jim and the group up there, and we're going to discuss it. So it never hurts to ask but like you know, there's politics and everything. So how you present it and how you couch it is going to be critical, but it's worth asking.
Let me make another comment, and I won't belabor this anymore. It's Cliff. Thinking that the national meeting is coming up, you know, this fall. This events of 2 weeks ago is worldwide news. I would think that ESC needs to plan, you know, on a national level, that when everybody shows up in Austin, the topics of resiliency and energy efficiency have got to be linked together. So I guess my point is, I think that we should push the message to the national group that the state chapter is on standby, and we're ready to generate some ideas about the cross-pollination, if you will, of energy efficiency, ESCOs, and energy resiliency, because it's going to be expected. We're not going to have a complete annual meeting if this is not addressed in some form.
Well, I'll do my part. I just happen to have our vice president of Year Out is on the national ESC board, so I'll put something in his ear for sure.
That'd be good, Cody. And you know, having served with Alex in the New Mexico chapter, I think he has a progressive mindset on what ESC could do.
Absolutely.
I think that'd be great.
And one thing to always remember, you know, if you ask and for whatever reason, let's say that it's not accepted, it doesn't mean as a whole it may not be acceptable. It just may mean things need to be tweaked a bit. So just don't stop asking. Just, you may have to frame it a different way for that audience, but don't stop asking.
Absolutely.
Eddie, anything else you'd like us to know, or kind of comments from your office?
No, not at this stage. I think it's been a good meeting.
Thank you. Anyone else have any comments for kind of the open discussion, good of the group? Otherwise, I was going to give all the outgoing officers a chance to have a parting comment and wrap this up.
Take it away, Vince.
Yeah, hearing none, I will start what is likely to be a series of thank yous, and just say really thank you to everyone that's continued to participate over the last year and 2 years from this organization restarting. For those of you that are new to the Texas industry, ESC existed and operated here years ago and took about a 10-year hiatus as an organization, was refounded 2 years ago with many of us that are your elected officers here today. And it's one of those situations where you don't really know how successful you are at leading the organization. I tried to, pride myself on being inclusive with our decision making, ethical, and really put our organization ahead of my individual company's needs. And I would encourage those of you that are elected to continue to do the same. But if I just on the scorecard, which makes me feel happy is the fact that there's still over 30 people here on the line today, and that we have continued participation. So if nothing else, you guys are all happy to see me go. So I'm happy for that. And I am thankful again for all of your support over the last 2 years. And I think the chapter really, with where the market's at in Texas, has a bright future ahead of it. So thanks to everyone.
Thank you, Vince.
Thanks, Larry. Dylan.
Yeah, I'm gonna echo a lot of Vince's comments. Was very proud to have served as a treasurer for the past 2 years, and Got to meet a lot of great people. Along the way had kind of the doubts too. We were trying to restart this thing and, trying to keep membership up. And then, so that first year was pretty tough. And then we had this past second year was even tougher. It's just really cool to see our numbers stay up there, see a strong account balance, and see this thing really moving forward, and to have been part of it, essentially from the ground up the past couple of years is really cool. And, I look forward to participating in as much as I can moving forward and helping the incoming treasurer get up to speed and doing my part to keep this thing going. Well done, guys.
Thanks, Dylan. Jennifer?
I've really enjoyed serving as secretary. It's been a great role, and I'm excited for whoever ends up stepping into the role, sharing information with you. I've been proud to represent the organization in this role and to be involved, just like Vince and Dylan shared. I've been in the industry for a while and was involved the first go around with the ESC. And so I was so excited when it rebooted. And I was even more excited and proud to be a part of it in this role. I'm really passionate about what we do in this industry, and I'm passionate about sharing it and participating. So I do plan on remaining engaged and involved, and I'll look forward to more speaking engagements and opportunities to continue being an evangelist for what we do out there in the marketplace. So I'm looking forward to it.
Cassidy?
Yeah, so unlike the rest of the officers, when I started in my role as communications chair, I was basically a newbie to the energy savings performance contracting world. And the last 2 years has just been an incredible opportunity for me to learn your industry, meet most of you. I now consider a number of you friends and close colleagues. I really appreciate the mentorship that I've received from my fellow officers and from other members of the chapter. I also appreciate the patience in allowing me to be at times more expansive in my role than maybe was defined on paper. But just really proud of the state and this industry, and I also plan to remain involved. I probably won't run every Zoom meeting. I hope I won't, but I will. I definitely look forward to transitioning the role to, looks like, Broderick, and continuing to stay involved. So thank you guys all for your time and your support over the last couple of years.
Go ahead, Devin.
Yeah, it seems like I've talked a lot already, so I'll keep it brief. First of all, just to the other officers, it's been, not only has it been very informative and productive for me, it's been a pleasure. It's been a delight, actually, to get to know you guys better. Vince, I thought you did an excellent job with Fred in leading our group. Dylan was always on top of the money and the finances, was always there. Jennifer, the attention to detail, I think you stepped into your role and did it perfectly. Cassidy, I probably leaned on you more than maybe any of the others in the group, and you definitely were a huge part of any contribution that I was able to make at any time. The first year, I think, was super productive, and I really liked the momentum that we had going. Obviously, this last year was rife with a lot of challenges. I think I would be remiss to leave out Batin, who I think, especially over the last year, I know she's off the line now, but did most all the heavy lifting in terms of the outreach. And I wanted to take this opportunity to thank her for doing that, because I think she really filled in that role. And Dub has also been super helpful, just his wealth of knowledge, his willingness to step in and contribute, I think, has been a real help to all of us. And then Lisa on the finance side, Charlie, those people were, I'll probably forget people, but it was a really productive time for me, and I'm grateful for the chance that I had to be a part of it. I hope again that I wasn't too much of a pain in everyone's backside for really trying to move the needle on evolving a little bit of the message and our outreach efforts. But I hope at some point that becomes, relevant and useful. But yeah, I feel like if anything, I gained a lot, maybe more than I even contributed. And I deeply appreciate that, because like everyone else said, been in this industry for a long time, and I firmly believe in what we do. And I'm passionate about what we do. And like everybody else, I'm always wanting to become more educated and more effective in spreading the message and doing what we try to do. So thanks to everybody, and all the best to the guys coming in. I think this organization is moving in the right direction, and it's been a pleasure for me to be a part of it. So thank you.
Thanks, Devin. And for those of you that aren't aware, if you're new, if it was this time last year, we would be meeting in Arlington. I think we were at Texas Live or near the new stadium, and we'd all go to happy hour together. And I for one look forward to when we're back to those days as an organization. I think when we were getting together in person, there were a lot of great conversations that were continued to have or be had after the meetings. So I'm optimistic that we're only a few months away from that again here in Texas. And again, like you've heard, the national conference is going to be here in Austin, and it's going to be a great chance to feature this chapter. So, Fred, do you want to close us out?
Sure. Yes, I do look forward to the day where we're gonna be able to toast and say thank you to the officers. This chapter success is because of you guys, and I really enjoyed working with you. Don't forget that I want to congratulate the nominees, and I'll be sending out the ballots here pretty soon. And that's it pretty much. Oh yeah, let me just go ahead and say one more time for the members, that the item number 6 on the code of conduct, the highest value for all is achieved by your active participation in the committee, local chapter, and national activities. So I hope you participate in the national conference, and even in the committees as well. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Fred.
Sure.
Thanks, Fred, and thanks everyone for joining today. I believe with that, we're wrapped.
All right.
Thanks, everybody.
So the recording will be on the YouTube channel, so check it out. Bye.
Thanks, Cassidy.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.